What is going on, comic fam? It's your boy, the bearded comic bro, and I am joined by comic creator Russell Nohelty. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I should say welcome back because you were on a while ago when I had Travis Gibb and all a bunch of creators from the Cthulhu. I think was it though? Was it Wonderland?
See, I was trying to think. I was hoping you would remember because the last one was Wonderland. The one
Yes.
before that was Oz. And Travis tends to go very hard when he does a launch, and it's like 50 things. And I was like, I remember being on one of them, but like I was trying to put the little. It's
Right.
like the Brady Bunch. I'm like, which were this? Who were the other squares that were there?
Yes, and that's what I was trying to remember. And someone had like a Humpty Dumpty, like an egg story that was cracked or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. So that was
So
the last one, and
yeah,
that was like March, I think, this year.
yeah.
God, is it only March? Was it only a few months ago?
It's crazy. So we talked a lot about that book, but we're talking about your stuff right now. You've got a new Kickstarter coming out, Ichabod Jones, Monster Hunter. Um, and this is what I think volume four is.
It is. It's volume four. It's the completes, and it's also the completion of the 16 issue arc that is Ichabod. So it's ending. Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter is ending. I won't say Ichabod Jones is necessarily ending, but Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter. So most people don't know the colon Monster Hunter was only going to be like one arc of the book when I originally did it, and each arc was going to be different. But
Okay.
we had the first volume for so long. It was the only thing that we did with Ichabod for like 8 years, and so it just became like Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter was the name of the book, but it's not. Ichabod Jones is the name of the book, and Monster Hunter is the art. This particular arc that ends this. To me, this is the end of the whole Ichabod Jones series, but I can only say definitively because the fans were so relentless last time that that's the reason that I brought it back. That I will not say the end of Ichabod Jones is done, but I will for sure say the end of Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter is done.
And I am excited to kind of explore that and explore Ichabod Jones and everything that you got going on with that. Before we hop into it too much, so I always like to know, how did you get into creating comics?
Well, I came from movies and TV, like so many comic creators who live in Los Angeles did. Either they do or did work in movies and TV. And I had a management team who asked me, like, if I'd ever thought about doing comics. And I was like, well, I mean, 10 years ago, I wrote them, I read them, but like, I haven't really thought about comics. And my manager at the time turned around and handed me a big stack of comics that they were developing, like indie comics, like not Marvel DC stuff,
Right.
which is what was in my head, but like not the old Image stuff, like the just these very weird, like very cool books. And I asked him how much it cost to make those books. And when he told me, I said, I am now in the comic book business, not in the movie making business, because making those beautiful comics cost a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of doing a movie, and you could be so much more.
Mm.
It's such a much more visceral experience. It might be a less visceral experience for the audience, but like for a creator to
Yeah.
just have like immediate access to one artist that you could jam, like Ichabod is me and Renzo, like me and there's a color assist for the last volumes of the book, but like it was me and Renzo the whole time basically doing 95% of it. And to be able to have that kind of like back and forth with someone,
Mm.
uh it fulfilled the collaborative need that movies and TV did,
Yeah.
and also the my desire to tell a story without a lot of people, which is what movies and TV told me to stop doing.
So was Ichabod your first foray into comics, or did you have some other stuff before you got into Ichabod?
Oh, I have the quintessential comic book story. The first book that I did was called Wannabes. It was fake superheroes who get real superpowers. It's real adorable. My company, Wannabe Press, used the logo of this book. It was like a manga. It looked very manga. It was so cute and adorable. And I brought it down to Comic Con 2010, just sure that I was going to get a deal. I nothing. There was no doubt in my mind that like Marvel was going to sign me. I was going to be the next big person. But I didn't even have printed copies. I just had an iPad. Like, so I didn't bring ash cans. Like, technically that's an ash can, but like you have to actually have a book like printed for it to be an ash can. So this was just like 8 pages on a computer. I literally had to do portfolio reviews, like go to FedEx and print out copies of this thing because I did not know that. I thought the iPad would be good. It was not. So yeah, everyone said no, shockingly, and 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 some of them said, some of them I'm not now friends with, like Alex at Committed Comics. But like, why would I make a superhero book? Marvel and DC make superhero books. Like, I'm not going to go up against them. Now you might be thinking, but every other book is an indie superhero book now. That was not the case in 2010.
Right.
There were very, very, very few of them. Aside from like Invincible, I don't, was Irredeemable out then? I guess Irredeemable too.
Okay.
Like, there weren't just like those were the superhero comics. And there was like some like big twist on the superhero genre, and mine was just like, nope, cute kids get superpowers and then like they fight bad guys. So yeah, I came back, like I just spent everything. Like I had like so little money left. I spent everything. I was like, my God, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And then I was cresting over the hill to the valley. The Los Angeles is constructed in such a way that like there's a big road that goes over this big mountain, and it goes into, and I was going to a meeting and I came up with the idea for Ichabod, and I was like, well, if people are gonna say no to me, like let's let them really say no. Like when you open Ichabod, you're like, how did this you not be, if someone was like, how would this ever be published? It's so violent. And like, especially back like 12 years ago, before people were like as okay with violence in their published books than they are now. Like I've made it so over the top violent because it was kind of my FU to comics, and which is funny because it also landed my first comic publishing deal.
Isn't that the way it goes, right?
It does. And I think it's because like you don't hold back. Like, you know, whenever this happens, it's like, no, this is the story I want to tell. I'm not gonna like clip the wings here and clip it over here, and like I'm just gonna tell the thing in my unique voice. And that's the most important thing, I think, in comics, is like, and in writing in general, it's like, why are you uniquely qualified to tell this story? And if you can't answer that question, like it's hard to get people on board.
Yeah. So you had this idea for Ichabod while you were driving home after kind of just being discouraged of previous comics. So what is Ichabod Jones then, for those that haven't gotten a chance to read it?
Sure. So Ichabod Jones is about a mental patient that escapes an asylum during the apocalypse and becomes a monster hunter, but doesn't know if he's killing monsters, humans, or it's all in his head the whole time. So like that's the overarching mind screw that is Ichabod. But really, it's a story about like someone who was objectively bad. Like he's a serial killer, killed a bunch of people, and was found guilty of it. And like now he's been transported to the only place where he is a hero. Like this is a place that is uniquely qualified, like that he is uniquely qualified to succeed in. Like all of his blood, guts, viscera, all of the violence that is inside of him, like he's the hero here. And like, is there any way for him to be a hero though, when society has so roundly rejected him, and when he is so broken? And it's really like, when you go down one more layer, it's really about like a person who succeeds not despite what is broken about them, but because of it.
So cool to hear that kind of the behind the scenes aspect. So where did this idea though resonate, or not resonate, but kind of start for you? Of what's the process, I guess, even like for you when you're coming up with an idea? Like, did it just pop up in your head like, I want to have this story, or was it kind of pieced together through different things?
Well, I wanted to do like the least likely. I wanted to make a story about the least likely hero possible.
Okay.
And I've been thinking about it for a couple of weeks after Comic-Con, and it finally was like, oh, I had this like, what if he's a serial killer? And like like, boy, there's a lot of these books out there where the serial killer is the hero, and they're always so nihilistic, and they're always so like, I don't know, vengeful. I don't know the right word for it. I'm trying to think of it because like I'm doing this, I'm doing a bunch of press for this book and talking about this book for 10 years. And I can't think of, like, they feel so icky
Yeah.
reading them because they're so gleeful about the violence and
Mhm.
about the things that they do. And often they're heroes or they're the leads, but they're actually like terrible people. And so I said, if I'm going to tell the story, I want him to be like a real hero, like that. I need him to look kind of like a Johnny the homicidal maniac type who like looks adorable, or like a Squee type, even better, but like he has had like a lot of stuff happen to him. So it was a lot to start like, well, what if I make him a serial killer, to like, what if I made him someone who heard voices in his head that were telling him to do a thing that is objectively horrific, but he was doing them for what he thought were the right reason. Like he was killing demons, he thought, in the way that kind of like not Fracture. What's the Matt Damon movie? If you remember the Matthew McConaughey movie where he
With Bill Paxton.
Bill Paxton, yeah, that movie.
Frailty.
Yes, thank you. I was like, it's not Fracture. Yes,
Yeah.
so like that, and that hadn't come out yet, so I saw that later and I was like, oh, like synchronicity.
You gotta check your Kickstarter supporters, see which
I know, right? So it, but so I really wanted it to be like an unlikely hero, but someone who was on this journey to like, can he become a hero? Like, is there a scenario where like he could redeem himself? And I was very much in that place also. Like, I wasn't killing people, but like I had already been this kind of reject from DC who moves to LA, who's rejected roundly from like the community of like studios and getting jobs in studios or anywhere in LA. Like I couldn't even get like a job. I got some craft services jobs, so that's about the best that I could do in Los Angeles. And just to have that like feeling of being an outsider, of like everyone having made their mind up about you, and like, is there a way for someone like that? And very much how I felt. And I think one of the reasons it resonates is a lot of people feel that way. A lot of people feel like roundly rejected by society and are wondering if like, they feel like they're all made up of broken bits, and like that like don't fit, and they don't fit anywhere, and are trying to find a place where like they can have their own hero's journey. And like, so all of those kind of pieces, and I didn't quite know it took years to kind of piece all this stuff together. But I wanted, so the kernel was, I wanted to tell a story of the least likely hero possible, and like the serial killer was the biggest thing, and I was like, that's never gonna sell. And I was like, good, let's roll into that, like let's
yeah.
turn into that. And then I convinced my wife to let me do like a 5-page sample, and then it took, like, it was a miracle to find Renzo, because I had said I knew very little about art at the time. And so I said I was looking for a hyper realistic art style. And what I meant was a surrealistic art style. So, like, the fact that Renzo even found it and submitted was like, I don't know, probably because he was Spanish and didn't speak very good English. And the translator didn't translate the thing properly. But, like, the minute that I saw the art that he did, even not even in the, and it's in the book page 4 of the first issue is the page that he drew, and I saw them just in inks, and I was like, that's it. Like, that's literally the page that's in my head. Like, I'm looking at the exact thing that I wrote in my head. And then he did the colors, and it was in like 80-90% of Renzo's work comes out in the colors. And like, just to see it and be like, that's the thing. Like, how, and when I talk to artists and writers, I'm like, that's the connection. Like, you need to wait however long it takes to find somebody that will make the book that you see in your head. And if you
Yeah.
can't do that, if you don't find that person, then you just got to wait longer. I'm sorry. Like it sucks. Like it
Yeah.
sucks. I can't just say, get 100 submissions and find the best one, because like, if you do that, like you're going to get a book that you don't love, or you're going to have to spend so much time with the artist, like banging heads against the wall, that it's just not going to be worth it. You're going to have a bad experience. Like you really have to wait for that lightning to strike, or find an artist you love and then make a book for them and with them.
Mm. So there was just kind of an open call to get submissions, and
Yeah.
you're like, that's it. That's so cool to hear.
There were only like 7 of them. Like there were only like 7 people that applied to this thing, and Renzo was one of them. So like that, I could find someone who was so perfect in like that, because we did a call for Katrina Hates the Dead about 8 months or 9 months later, and like hundreds of submissions for that one, like exactly what you would expect. So that, but this one had like 10 submissions. Of course, why wouldn't it? Like, who wants to do a hyper realistic art style of like this weird book? Well, that's totally antithetical and anachronistic to what would work for the book. So I get that not a lot of people applied, but yeah, like there's maybe 10, maybe 10. I think there's more like 7 people that applied.
So then what was the process then for once you got your story was in your head, you found your artist, what was it like to then get that published, to get it made for you?
Oh, it was a nightmare. So Renzo would often have brownouts. So Renzo lives in Argentina. Argentina had a lot of brownouts. Some of them would last for months. And so and the way I paid back then, I paid a huge amount of money out of pocket for this book to get drawn. And I did the whole 4 issues. So like I did, once we got the deal, I just was like, I'm going to do all of it. And so I sent him thousands of dollars, and then just literally didn't hear from him for months often. I then found out that I was also emailing the wrong email. So I was emailing the wrong email at some point, and then like there were brownouts, and also there was a language barrier. And so, but what ended up happening was every 6 months or so, he would just turn in a page, like an issue. Like he would just turn in an issue, and it would be like perfect. I was like, well, I'm real angry at how this process is working. And so, but then I would go and I was like, well, maybe I can like. Sometimes I'd be like, I'm now in this book, and here's what you. If you've never made a book before, the hardest part is the longer you get into the book, the more stress that it is, because the less likely you can find another artist to do the other. But like, if you pay a $500 deposit, that sucks. But like, you can get out of that. Like, oh, that sucks. Like, I didn't really like this experience. This happened to me before. Like, whatever. But once you're $5, $6, $8,000 into a book, and you're like 3 issues in, you're like, oh my God, I've sunk. I can't. Like, what do you even? I can't eat. Like, this has to work. So I'm like looking for other artists, and like they're just not. This happened like once or twice. I think it was at least once, but I think it was twice that I put out calls for new stuff. And like while the process was going on, like I talked to people who could mimic art styles, and I had like, and just wasn't finding anything. And during that process, Renzo just like delivered a whole issue, and I was like, well, I guess I don't have to deal with this, because I just wasn't finding it, which is the hardest part of doing a very specific art style.
Yeah.
And this is why, like, when people say like, well, well, they do a little bit more now, but 10 years ago, they weren't doing a lot of like weird art style. They had like one art style. And it's like, that's because they needed to be mimicked by anyone. Like if someone drops out after 15 pages, like they need to get someone to fill in. Like you have to have something that is like kind of able to service a lot of artists, as opposed to when you're doing something very specific. Like I honestly don't know if there's an artist alive who can do that Ichabod book. I don't know. There probably is, but like, I haven't met them.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I even noticed it, like, they're even in like, the big 2, sometimes you'll be reading an issue and there'll be a certain artist on for whatever reason, then they're not on for a couple issues. And if the art style is well, it was just one I just read. I was reading Harley Quinn, and Riley Rosmo was in a very unique style of art, and then like it was off it for this book, and it was just a very more traditional art style. It's like, oh, this is different.
Yeah, and like if you, it's okay to do that after the between arcs a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
But you know, I think about like Destiny New York, where Pat Shand does different artists each volume, or at least has done different artists for each volume, and like it's still hard for him to find an artist that will like that will fit in that world. So like to find something that will fit in Ichabod's world, I think there are artists who could, if I created a story for them, like could do that, but it's so hard to mimic that art style, and it's not something where I could be like, okay, Renzo, just do inks, because almost all of his work, and Nick Torres, who did Pixie Dust, is the same way. Like so much of their work comes out in the color that like it's almost not even a page. Like it's
Yeah.
like, here's a bunch of thoughts I have. And so often Renzo will just have like, you know, he'll just do the foreground, just like the character. And I'm like, all right, like I don't know what's there. Then you get you're like, oh, well, yeah. Like there was one that he did that was just like, I think it was issue 3, like the beginning of, maybe like the beginning of issue 3. They get out of the asylum, and they go to this they go to the and they're looking out on the horizon, and like he just did like the backgrounds of the people, because we were behind them looking out into
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the barren wasteland. So he just drew like the backs of people's heads, and I'm like and it's white, and I'm like, I email him back all the time. I'm like, I know you have a vision, so I'm just going to say this note, because if it's bad, I can't go back. But like, I don't know what I'm looking at here. And there was one that was just feet, and I was like, I, this doesn't look like there's enough feet. Like, I don't like. I know they're running. I know you have a vision, but like, I gotta say, like, there's only 3 feet here, and there's 6. There should be 6 feet. So anyway, and of course, it always turns out wonderful. But
Yeah.
like, I find myself a lot of times just being like, well, we've done this successfully 100 times before,
Right.
so, or like 300 pages before, so I'm just gonna trust that it's gonna happen. And people often like can't give up that and it's hard for me to do it too, but like there's just this like kind of trust fall you have to do in comics if you're not the writer, because there's gonna be something that you don't know. I'm have a new book that I'm working on right now. It's just one issue, but like, oh, it's just like the sketch phase, and like they're just blocking out, and I'm like, I can't see anything from blocking out. So I'm like,
Yeah.
here's kind of what I think, and I'm just gonna hope that by the end we're gonna get this page that I know you've done before from this like stick figure piece that doesn't look like anything.
Yeah. Oh, so
Yeah.
so cool to hear. Again, like that's what I love talking about and trying to figure out the process and the behind the scenes of how comics get made, because it's such a unique aspect. And well, let's focus on the Kickstarter here with Ichabod Jones. If someone's hopping into this, because I mean we're at volume 4, and that's how many issues are per volume?
4, so it's 16 issues
Okay.
total.
So are there, I'm assuming there's probably tiers that people can catch up and get caught up on the story of like they're listening to this podcast, watching this video for the first time, going, this sounds awesome, but holy cow, I'm late to the game.
Yes. So we have, well, you can go, if you go to the Kickstarter campaign, you get the first issue. You can just download the first issue and like read the first issue, because Ichabod is a very specific thing where you're either going to love it or you're going to like be like, this is absolutely not for me. Like there is no in between with Ichabod. Ichabod has devoted hardcore fans and people who would rather I not have ever made this book. And the amount of casual fans is very, very small, which is why like we've been able to succeed for so long, because people love this book so much that like when I went to bring it back, like I was like, I need $16,000 to bring this book back, and they were like, here you go. And I was like, well, I guess we're going to do 3 more volumes now. So you get the first issue for free. You can either digitally or physically get all of our books. So I do audio commentaries, and I do so you can get the audio and digital, and it goes up from every $10 up to $80 to get either the ebook or the audio commentary. So
Yeah.
if you want all of this stuff, all the audio commentary comes free in the physical books, but they don't come free in the audio books. So the audio commentary and everything is $80, or you can just pledge $40 and get the 4 books, or you can get 2 audio books and two audio commentaries and 2 ebooks, whatever you want. I try and make it very easy to get exactly what you want. And then we have tiers for all of the physical books. I don't only offer Ichabod. I offer all of our books that I have in stock. So there's like a 1-book combo, a 2-book combo, a 3-book combo, a 4-book combo, and it keeps going on. We've got 9 books in print right now, and so it's not going to be a tier that's like get all 4 Ichabods, because a lot of people, what they'll do is be like, oh well, I want 4 of your books, but what I want Pixie Dust, and I want Katrina Hates the Dead, and I want Cthulhu is Hard to Spell 1, and I want Cthulhu Ichabod 1, and then if I like Ichabod 1, I'll get the rest of them later. So I don't. It's been so hard to try and find a way that gets all the people who want Ichabod and all the people who want like grab bag stuff together. And it didn't work when we tried it in just the add-on menu. So like, this is the kind of weird system that we've developed, which is you can get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 physical books. You can get all of the Ichabod books and digitally. You can get all of our books digitally, all of my novels digitally, all of our everything digitally. You can get an all-in that has all of our digital, all of our physical, and all of our pins and like other merch that we do as well. So it really depends. We there are tiers from $1 all the way up to like $500, something like that, and that'll get you everything. And you can see that's everything is a lot, can be a lot of stuff. Yeah. So the good thing about Ichabod is if you backed our Cthulhu is Hard to Spell campaign, the third one is not in port yet, but I ordered the 4th Ichabod at the exact same time. So you're going to be able to get, instead of waiting months to get the 4th Ichabod, you're going to kind of get them both at the same time. When the one comes in, they're going to both come in. So I have seen the proof and gotten the production print, and you can see this was all 4 volumes. Let's see if I can get this all in 2 hands. Might be hard, but so this is 1, 2, 3, and then volume 4. You can see we do if you can see the shininess is the UV spot. I also do it so that it feels like a collected volume. So all the spines are the same, all the page counts are the same, all the branding is the same for all 4 books. So we really wanted it to feel like a special collector edition volume.
That's so cool. They look great too.
Thank you. We spend a lot of time on the design of our books. Like we think that, indie comics are not cheap ever. So I want to make sure that when people get our books, they're going to get like a beautiful experience that they're not going to easily find at a publisher. Because, there's a lot of publishers that publish indie comics now, but like very rarely are they publishing in hardcover. Usually you have to go to the indie, to like an indie creator himself to get the hardcovers, or the hardcovers will be in different sizes or formats or something. So I wanted to make sure that when we did this book, and the series, that like it felt like one thought. And I don't know what the next thought will look like. It might be an Ichabod thought, it might be some other thought, but like I wanted it to feel like you get the whole experience and you're going to be able to look at it on a shelf forever. If you look at the Cthulhu books, also have that same kind of consistent branding. It's very important for me, if I go to my shelf, that I'm able to like see that it's one series. And so I'm making an assumption that like other people are as anal as me about that.
Yes. My biggest pet peeve is when I look back at my wall there and I'm like, oh, these books are in the exact same series, but they're different size or they're different shapes. And I'm like, color. I'm like, it drives me insane. So as a collector, I appreciate that so much.
I think of Runaways, because Runaways came in the little ones and the big ones, and I got like some in the little ones and some in the big ones, and I'm so angry every time I look at my shelf. But I also don't want to commit to rebuying that whole series in either format.
Yep. I know exactly how it is. I know exactly how it is. So you said that in the Kickstarter they can buy some of the other books. If someone hasn't, gotten to experience any of your work before, is there something that, else that you'd recommend that they check out in the Kickstarter?
Sure. So you talked about Cthulhu Invades. This is the series by Travis Gibb and his awesome editorial team. Travis will totally cop to being in my anthology series, Cthulhu is Hard to Spell, and then doing his anthology series after being in my series. Like, I'll let you determine what that means after here, but we have an anthology series called Cthulhu is Hard to Spell. It's about the gods and monsters of H.P. Lovecraft. So ours is more of I don't know, what people wanted was sort of a monster manual for the gods of Lovecraft, and that exists. Chaosium already made that, so like we're going to make another thing. But these are all self-contained stories about the gods and monsters of H.P. Lovecraft. Some of them are silly, some of them are funny, some of them are slice of life. There's 70 creators in each one, and the covers are all drawn by Aaron Alexovich. Have also got that same like branding feel. And you can see there's so like there's all sorts of art styles in there. Some are silly, some are fun, some are very, very scary, and some have that same psychological. A lot of them have the same psychological punch that Lovecraft gave.
Mm.
We have found that people who like Ichabod really like our Cthulhu is Hard to Spell series, and vice versa. So that's the one I normally
Awesome.
I normally recommend somebody get.
Nice. So good. It's so cool to, again, that when you're creating a project that you're thinking about the fan, you're thinking about the collector as well. Because I think that's important, especially with indie comics, because like you said, it's not cheap on either way to make them, and it's not cheap to do Kickstarters. And so you want something to, if you're supporting a Kickstarter, that looks good and collects well.
Yeah, I mean that's been our goal from the beginning. Is we so our books our hardcovers are $40 each, which is not cheap. You get the ebook inside of that. You also get the audio commentary inside of that, and then you get the book that's in hardcover inside of that. So we figure if you price a hardcover at between $20 and $30, a ebook at $10, between $5 and $10, and an audio commentary between $5 and $10, like there's good value there. But
Yeah.
in order to get these hardcovers to be priced at a place that allows us to like continue making them, it means that we have to price them high. But and if someone we have found if you're at the higher end of the market, which is like you're willing to do hardcovers, like you are quite particular, and with every reason to be. Like if you're paying $5 for a comic, it's like, all right, well, yeah, there's a little smudge here, or like it's kind of ripped, but like whatever, it's $5.
Right.
It's like a cup of coffee. But like when you're paying $40, like no, you really want like the whole, like you really want someone who's thinking about all of these elements and how they fit together. And Travis does this amazingly well. And like I think that the people that do this well, between the Pat Shans, the Charlie Stickneys, the Melissa Paliukas, the Naomi Van Dorens of the world, they tend to be the ones that succeed because people are like, oh, I don't have to like worry that it's going to come and like cheap paper.
Yeah.
Not to worry that it's going to come and like the binding's going to fall out in 3 weeks after I do it. I'm not going to have to worry. The worst is when you get a book and it's like the manga sized book, and you're like, but why? Like, why even would you do this? Like, why would you do this to me?
Yep.
So I've backed over 650 projects, and so I'm very well versed and been involved in so many and gotten so many comps that I'm like, I know, like I kind of have felt
Right.
every feeling, and the feeling that I want you to get is, man, these are like beautiful books, and like, wow, they read really well, and wow, oh look, you took even the thing to be like all of the things, no matter how you do it, like line up appropriately, and like you can slip it in a slipcase, or we don't do slipcases yet, but like you could just all these things
Yeah.
that you don't need to like. You're not going to have to rebuy them in 58 formats. Like you've got them in the best format. If you want to rebuy them, I mean, when they come out in paperback, which is a different story, then like that would be great. But like you've got them in like a wonderful collector hardcover
Right.
format, and that all of that stuff is very important to us. And I think one of the reasons that we've succeeded as a company for as long as we have is like we put, if you can tell, like overthink to the nth degree about the user experience and the reading experience that someone is going to get, and even the experience of just like how are they going to feel when they open this box and
Yeah.
see the books and all of the other goodies.
Yeah. So you've said, we're talking about the user experience, and you mentioned it a couple of times. The audio commentary. So what is the audio commentary then for a book like yours?
Okay, so it basically is me opening up the book, going page by page, and telling stories about the production of the book. It's either the inspiration for why I wrote a page, or a story about like the art or
Yeah.
something. It's not happening on every page, but there's a good example in the third volume. We go to Venice. We do a flashback to Venice, Italy. And like I went to Venice, Italy, and I literally took pictures, and Renzo rotoscoped the imagery that like I sent him. And so like and like you can tell like this beautiful like imagery of like of Venice that like I'm like this is out of pictures that I
Yeah.
took, like, and it was so cool. And like so those kind of stories that get you to go deeper, because that is to me the secret of Kickstarter, is like the reason you pay more is because you want to support creators, because you want to like get a deeper relationship with them, and because like you want to know more about the stories that you're gonna get like a Marvel or DC book. So all of this is trying to improve the fan experience. We also do, if you back at the $50 or higher level, we do a VIP call where you can come on and ask me questions about the series. I haven't done one for volume 3 yet because I'm waiting until we're live with the Kickstarter. But we're trying to. Our biggest thing is fostering fandom, and
Yeah.
we think that includes, that is everything from making the great book to like doing the Q&As and doing the audio commentaries and then being present. But it really does come back to making like the best books we know how, and to do it in a way that we think fans are going to really resonate with.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's such a cool thing. And if you're listening to this or watching this interview, go check out the website. I'll have links to all the stuff we talked about in the description of this video, but go check it out. Get that first issue, because that, like you said, you can read it right there, and you're just saying, look, you're either gonna love it or you're gonna hate it. And I think that's such a cool, just like you have such I think faith in your product because of what you've put into it, that what you got. And I think that's a cool thing to say, like, here, check it out. It's
Yeah, I mean, I don't want you I don't want you to like feel like you lost your money, or that
right.
had a bad, or like you're like, oh, this didn't deliver. So like I'm very happy to give you the first issue, because if you like the pacing, I literally go back every volume and I reread everything to make sure the pacing and everything
Mm,
stays the same even. So yeah, I mean, and like the book evolves obviously, because we did the first volume in 2010, but like it's still the same two people making the book, and like the art has evolved over time, my storytelling was evolved over time. But I agree, I mean, if we believe in the product, we've given like tens of thousands of the first issue away at this point. I think every indie creator has in some indie bundle. You probably, if you're listening to this, if you just go back like to some of the old indie bundles, you probably have Ichabod in one of like the bundles that someone has given away in the past like 5 or 6 years, because we want it to be out there. Like,
yeah.
and mostly we wanted to be out there because like it's a very niche book. Like we
Yeah.
get it. Like this is a Lovecraftian horror meets dark fantasy meets Christian apocalypse like mashup that is overly violent in many ways, in many places. And so we know that the audience for that is, and it's an allegory of a bunch of stuff, and the hero is like mentally is like has mental issues, and like we treat like, so all of there's like multiple layers to it. So we know it's like you're either gonna
Yep.
love it or you're gonna like be like, this is turning me off completely.
Yeah.
This is not the kind of thing that, and there's nothing wrong with making like a mass market book. It's just this is the opposite of that,
Yeah.
and we're very aware. So we want you to look at the art of the page. We've got dozens of pieces of art on top of the first issue, and if you grok it, like we'd love to see you behind the backer wall, because
Yeah.
I think that this is a, even for all of my books, like Ichabod is a magical kind of book. Like the fans literally brought it back to life. I mean,
Mhm.
Ichabod was dead for 8 years, and then 2019, and it's only the badgering and the constant support and the constant questions from fans for like all of that time that Ichabod like had a resurgence and had a new life. And I've never had that with any other story I've ever made. And like I've made, like this is not all of the books that I've made, and definitely not all of them that I've been a part of. And I've never in all of that time had, I've had way more popular books and way more popular series, and I've never had a series that had fans like Ichabod.
So you said it was 2010 was the first one. How long of a gap was it between the first volume and the second one when the fans brought it back?
Okay, so the book came out. We started in 2010. It came out through the publisher in 2011. No, 2012. We got the rights back in 2014 and ran a Kickstarter in 2014. So I don't know how long that, like at what point you consider it published. The
Okay.
first four books, I guess, digitally came out in 2012, and we officially released it in 2014. And the fifth issue hit in 2019, and then the second volume hit in 2020. So somewhere between 6 and 8 years to,
Jeez.
and like, I mean, I did, I just, I mean, I've done a lot of books in my day, and usually you put them out, people read them and enjoy them, and then they like move on until you make the next
Right.
book. And this was not like that. Like Ichabod just ate at people, and they kept asking questions, and they kept coming to my table and saying, when is there going to be more? When is there going to be more? When is there going to be more? And then like there was, there was, it got to a breaking point. I'd seen so many books that I was like, and I kept saying like, there's not an audience for more. I kept saying, I was like, this is like, it's
Yeah.
such a niche book. Like it's not our bestseller. But then this weird thing happened in 2017 where sales of Ichabod had always been about a fourth to half of our big series, the Godsverse Chronicles, and specifically a book called Katrina Hates Dead Shit. And something happened in 2017. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the monsters and other scary shit stuff, but sales doubled. And then the next year, sales doubled again until it was like on par with Katrina. It was now being eclipsed by Cthulhu is Hard to Spell, but it was like the sales were on par. We were selling a lot of copies. And so, like, so I was like, wow, like, what is, I didn't know what was happening, but it eventually got to the point that I was like, okay, well, like, if we're making this many sales, like, it does make sense to at least attempt it. But in order to do that, what happened was in 2019, I went out of print on Ichabod, the seventh volume of the seventh run of Ichabod. And I was like, well, that's it, guys. It's over. Like, say goodbye to Ichabod. I've only got like 50 copies left. And like, I must have gotten 100, 200 messages being like, bullshit, you are. Like, if you end this book, we know it's never going to come back to print because it's too niche. It's like, there needs to be more Ichabod and we need it now. And so, yeah, I was so sick of fighting. Like, I'm like, why am I fighting my fans? Like, why am I fighting them? Like, I'm just gonna put it on Kickstarter, and like, if they're willing to give me 50, it was like $15,666, and like that's how much I needed to reprint Volume 1, print and get started on and do a fifth issue basically. And it's like, okay, like if you give me $15,666, which is a ridiculous amount of money for a person at my level to, or at least that's what I thought, my level to do a $16,000 Kickstarter on a book so weird, that's this weird, like, okay, I'll do it. And they did, I think we raised 16,780, and we raised the last like we're not funded until like the last day. And suddenly like it was like, oh, I guess we're making. And then once we finished volume 2, I was like, all right, like if we raise 20 grand, I'll do 2 more volumes. And then they did that. And then we did 22 grand the third volume. And like, it's just been this series that like fans have really shown me like what is possible. Like I have such I don't know if it renewed my faith in fandom, because I don't think I ever lost it, because I didn't
Yeah.
really understand it. Like I'd never had something like, people love Katrina, but they do not ask questions about Katrina. They do not have theories about Katrina. Like they just have a book that they enjoy. Some
Yeah.
people saying their favorite comic of all time. uh with Ichabod, it's like the forum kind of stuff where like there's like people asking me these weird obscure questions, and I'm like, oh, I get, like, I don't understand it, but like I get it. And
Yeah.
like my job is to service the people that are out there that like want more of Ichabod. And I'm kind of I'm absolutely thrilled that the horror and fantasy scene have become so much weirder on TV and movies over the last 5 years to like make Ichabod more and more popular. Because I think like Legion had a big part of like why people started liking Ichabod more. And then you had like Umbrella Academy and other stuff that happened. You know, and it used to just be like you have Lovecraft stuff and Johnny the Homicidal Maniac and like Invader Zim, I guess. But you just started getting more and more touch points of like this like psychological mind screw, because the whole premise is I'm going to mess with your head throughout the whole course of the book, and you're never going to know if he is in an apocalypse, if he's killing people and thinking he's in the apocalypse, or if it's all in his head. And like I literally, for all 16 issues, that's my goal. Like that's the thing, like that's the hook. And like because of that, people I guess had this visceral experience. I don't really know. I still don't know. I've been doing this now for so long, and like Ichabod is still a very unique project in the fact that people like continually demand more, which is why I will never say that Ichabod is over. Even though I say other series are over, I will not say that about Ichabod, because it has been brought back from the dead once before.
Yep. That's so cool. I love to hear the fandom that that exists there and stuff. So, well, Russell, I want to respect your time as well. Kickstarter, when does the Kickstarter go live?
Kickstarter's live August 16th, and it
Okay.
will run until September 22nd. And we hope to see you behind the backer. Well, we've got all sorts of good goodies. If you're listening to this when it first goes live, we have a bunch of early bird perks that are really cool that we hope you'll check out.
Yeah, and definitely hop in on those early bird perks, because I've backed a lot of Kickstarters that, man, it's worth it. If you're like, oh, do I think about, you're gonna back it anyway. If you're thinking about it, you're gonna back it. So you might as well do it when you get some perks. So do it early.
Yeah, man. I mean, we gave I think $120 of free perks last time to people that backed early. So like, it's real. It's a lot you can get for getting in early, and
Yeah.
you really help us, like, because how much you back in the first couple days really determines like how much Kickstarter will like push you internally.
Right.
Like they make a lot of their metrics and numbers based on that. So those, we give a lot to early bird backers, but like they mean a lot to us because they really do juice the algorithm and help us find new people throughout the rest of the campaign.
Yep. Well, and Russell, where can people follow along with you so they know what you're creating, what you're working on, and
Well, if you go and download Ichabod from the Kickstarter, you're going to be on our mailing list. But you can also go to russellnohelty.com and join our mailing list. You can find me at Russell Nohelty on both Twitter and Facebook. You will find me on Instagram at Russell Writes Things. I only use it to talk to my tattoo artists and other artists. Like I do not ever post on there. So you're going to be sorely disappointed if you follow me there, but you can do that.
that's so good. So good. Well, Russell, thank you so much for taking some time out of your schedule just to talk about comics with me.
Absolutely. Look, I so enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, gang, go back Ichabod Jones and check it out. Again, the link to the Kickstarter will be in the description of this video. And with that being said, hopefully you can find some time to curl up, grab a book, and nerd out. Peace.